Imagine waiting 50 years, 9 months, and 4 days for the love of your life. Crazy, right? Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the profound thematic depth of Gabriel Garcia Marquez's literary masterpiece, Love in the Time of Cholera. We're going to break down its complex anatomy, explore its incredibly rich philosophical metaphors, and even contrast the original novel with that 2007 Hollywood film adaptation. So, if you've ever wondered how a story about a half-century of longing balances pure magic with some really stark reality, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 5 key areas: the plague of romantic love, the wisdom of the twilight years, realism meeting magical realism, translating the page to the screen, and finally, the novel's complex cultural legacy.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the plague of romantic love. Let's look at how Marquez hooks us right from the jump by equating romance with the deadly 19th century pandemic.
He writes, quote, "It was inevitable. The signs of cholera were all there, and the final fact had to be admitted." I mean, what an opening line. It establishes the stakes immediately. Marquez is literally telling us that love isn't just some gentle flutter in your chest. No, it is a full-blown infection.
To really wrap our heads around this, we gotta look at his concept of love as a state of grace. It's not your typical fairy tale, and it's definitely not just a stepping stone to marriage or social status. He defines it as a sacred force that has intrinsic value completely on its own. It's an origin and an end in itself. Our protagonist, Florentino Ariza, views his love for Fermina Daza with this deep, almost spiritual reverence.
Think about how these two forces operate. A literal cholera pandemic, it gives you a fever, it robs you of your agency, and it totally disrupts entire communities. While Florentino's love does the exact same thing. Genuine love is a wild, uncontrollable plague that just strips away all of our polite, superficial social norms and lays bare the innermost depths of the soul. It's basically a disease, just, with way better PR.
Moving right along to Section 2, Wisdom of the Twilight Years. Because, as you'll see, this emotional plague is definitely not just a young person's game. Marquez really challenges the boundaries of age here.
Florentino's devotion is it's staggering. We're talking over half a century of waiting for Fermina. He meticulously saves her love letters, rereading them over and over to constantly reignite his passion. And this wasn't just passive waiting. It was this deliberate, active cultivation of love. He completely defied temporal limits because, to him, the love itself was the reward no matter how many decades slipped by.
But hey, it's not just Florentino. Fermina Daza goes on this incredibly redemptive journey too. For years, she was totally bound by the expectations of her class, locked into this pragmatic marriage of duty with Dr. Urbino. But in her twilight years, she reclaims her passionate, authentic self. Her transformation is living proof that romantic love can be a profoundly liberating force. It's a pretty powerful reminder to all of us that spiritual renewal and vibrant passion aren't somehow magically cut off by the ticking clock of age.
Okay, Section 3. Realism meets magical realism. So how do you actually make a 50-year obsession feel mythical, but still believable?
Well, he pulls it off by smashing the sacred right up against the profane. We get these incredible magical elements, like a haunting parrot that literally leads to a character's demise, or those mystical yellow blossoms that seem to follow the lovers around. But then, those elements are slammed right up against harsh, gritty realities, aging bodies, the ecological devastation along the Magdalena River, and, of course, Florentino's own moral compromises and endless fleeting affairs.
Literary journals, like the Criterion, point out that this specific balance is literally the secret sauce of the book. Marquez absolutely refuses to let the narrative get too sappy or sentimental. He gives us the profound wisdom and transcendent grace of love, for sure, but he forces us to simultaneously swallow the bitter pills of human selfishness, moral compromise, and the really corrosive effects of time. It's such a rich, complicated tapestry.
Which brings us to Section 4, Translating Page to Screen. Let's see what happens when Hollywood tries to cram all this complex anatomy into a 2-hour runtime.
When you compare the original novel to the 2007 film adaptation, the shifts are honestly pretty drastic. The book uses this incredibly complex, interlaced timeline to build a rich world that actually cares about the broader life of the town. But the movie? It just kind of opts for simple flashbacks and zeroes in way too heavily on a stereotypical romance. It basically trades all that narrative depth for mainstream accessibility.
And the biggest casualty here is definitely Dr. Urbino, Fermina's husband.
In the novel, the guy is a civic hero. He stops cholera, he builds elevated aqueducts, he funds medical societies. The film completely flattens him out, reducing him to this retreating, cowardly husband whose biggest defining moment late in life is a really stereotypical affair with a patient. And they do this just to make the central love triangle easier for a movie audience to digest.
Finally, Section 5, a complex cultural legacy. Decades after it first hit the shelves, how are we still interacting with this masterpiece?
Why are modern readers still fiercely debating this book today? Despite, or let's be real, probably exactly because of, its narrative complexities, its moral ambiguities, and its totally unapologetic portrayal of obsession, the book continues to ignite passionate discussions all over the literary world.
You see this legacy everywhere, from literary giant Thomas Pynchon raving about it in his famous New York Times review, to readers deep in the trenches of Reddit dissecting it right now. There's this great comparison someone made. Reading Marquez's stream of consciousness is a lot like listening to jazz. It's challenging, it's complex, but letting your mind finally settle into the rhythm of the text is exactly what makes the experience so incredibly rewarding.
So here's a thought to leave you with. If true love really is this disruptive plague that strips away our agency and totally upends our lives, is it a disease we should be trying to cure, or is it literally the only state of grace actually worth suffering for? Thanks so much for joining this explainer of Marquez's unforgettable map of the human heart. Keep learning and keep asking those big questions.